Hello, everyone. Welcome to It Dawns on Me, a podcast from Larimer County Dems. I'm Dawn Kirk, and I am here today um, to learn a little bit more about what's happening in the Larimer County Dems right now. It's a busy time, as you can imagine. It's a busy year. It's elections coming up. And so I thought it would be a really good idea to learn more about it because I have a lot of questions, and I wonder if you do too. So I invited our guest today, Andy Yaste, who is the Larimer County Treasurer, to talk with us and teach us a little bit more about what's going on, what we need to know, and how we can get involved. So, welcome, Andy.
Thank you, Don. I am the treasurer of the Larimer County Democratic Party. That is a unique position and experience for me, but I'm here and ready to talk about it and get everybody excited to fund our local party.
Wonderful. Well, I am really excited about what we have going on. Every time I learn like one more thing that we're doing, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I like that. So, I am wondering, how are we paying for all of this? Because, none of this stuff is just happens. There's always work behind the scenes, and you're doing a lot of that.
Uh, Required some funding from some of the candidates, the candidate contribution to the party that the party would then retask those funds into a way that would affect or would support those candidates. We have kind of changed things a little bit in that we want to move towards a recurring funding model, and that we are hoping that people sign up to fund us on a recurring basis. And we are still going to have our fundraising events. And in fact, we've increased some of those fundraising events. But there's a big dinner in the spring. We're going to have it this year on Mother's Day, May 12th. It's going to be at the CSU Laurie Center. We're going to have some special guests and speakers and a lot of fun games and some silent auction items, and a great way to meet your electeds and members of the party. Also in the summer, we have our summer picnic where we all kind of get together and enjoy some peaches and ice cream and have a few beers and some drinks and stuff like that, and listen to a lot of speakers at that as well. But what we're doing differently this year is that we have added a Cinco de Mayo event, a Hispanic Heritage Month event in October, and we're also kind of expanding our reach to Pride Festival in the spring, or I'm sorry, in the summer, and whatever other kind of events that we can get involved in, basically broadening the scope of those events, and at the same time increasing our recurring donors through the webpage.
Awesome.
That
So,
way, we kind of have a little bit more of a dependable, consistent follow or funding method that we can depend on and make plans according to that, instead of hoping for a big windfall with each of our fundraisers.
yeah, yeah. And that also helps to make sure that you can do the events that pull everybody together because that's not only a fundraiser, but a chance for people to get involved and to learn. And so there's a benefit to that. And got to have the ability to pull it all together. So it's kind of nice to
Absolutely.
have both. That's great. Um, I'm very excited that there are a lot of a lot more chances to connect. I mean, when there's only one or two and it's a conflict, you're like, ah, dang it. I feel like I don't ever get to go. So this is nice because much easier to find ways to get involved.
I think coupled with the decision to move to a virtual caucus and assembly, and also with the state party making a virtual state assembly, I think having more of these events generally interspersed throughout the year kind of makes it better for us to kind of connect and have fun doing this instead of just doing all the work all the time. Like, this political activity is supposed to be fun. It really is.
Right.
And funding it makes it fun.
I'm glad you think so. It's always good when somebody enjoys the work that they're doing, considering that, it's volunteer and not everybody likes every job. So I always love hearing that you put the fun in fundraising. I love fun.
Well, I mean, I could go on and on here, but it is really fun supporting civil rights and, equal opportunity in our county, and, a broad-based horizontal power structure within the county that everybody thinks that they have a role in the future of Larimer County. That to me is fun.
Yes,
Envisioning here is fun.
agreed, right? That is like I mean, connection is such a big deal, and having purposeful ways to connect and not just go do a thing to do a thing is, why people continue to get involved. And I'm actually really sensitive as well to what I hear from other people who are less involved, right? When I have a chance to talk to somebody who hasn't done something for a while or doesn't know how to get involved, it's a reminder of, where a lot of people are right now because of things at the national level being so big, and we've been through several strange things. I feel like that's a accurate way to sum it up. Most of us would agree it's strange. Um, so I talk to people who are feeling, nervous and like powerless and kind of stuck. And I appreciate the fact that I don't feel that way. And I realized that the big reason is because I'm active. And even though I know that it's here and it's local, that's how we do it, right? We do what we can where we are, and that all makes a difference, and each of us, does a part. And so I'm really glad that you brought up what we're doing this for, because the money part is just a tool to help do the important
Absolutely.
piece. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And really,
So,
the funding that we're taking in is here to support candidates. The idea here, the whole concept here is to get Democrats elected. So, any bit of funding that we're taking into the party, it's not like we're making improvements to the office or we're, making it more luxurious to do our jobs or anything like that. 100% of those dollars are going straight back to supporting Democratic candidates in Larimer County. 100%.
that is so good. And so how do you do, like, what kinds of things do you do to help candidates? Because there's a lot that needs to be done. So I think some people are overwhelmed by the idea of running, and this might actually help people go, oh, okay.
Certainly. So one thing that we really made a change in, there was a new regime that came into elected position in the party over the last year and summer. I came in June of 2023. And when I did that, I took a chance to meet with as many elected candidates or elected office holders here in Larimer County as I could find. And what I was finding was that previously in the funding structure of the party, we had like charged the candidates a certain amount of money to be candidates. And they would give us a certain amount of money, and then we would redirect those funds into volunteers and door knocking and all sorts of stuff like that. So what we've really done here as the new group of power here in the party is that we have reversed that flow of funding. So that instead of the candidates funding the party is funding the candidates instead. So that what we did last year in November with the municipal and school board elections is that we funded the individual candidates, and the individual candidates can make their decisions about how to use that money on their own basis. Now, if the candidate doesn't want that money and would rather have us fund something, we can certainly do that on their behalf. But to me, the way I look at it is that the candidates know how to apply the funds. That's what I've heard from the candidates. Candidates know where their strengths are and what they need to do to be able to win that office. And what we can do is support with bodies, with knowledge, with know-how, with whatever we can do. But we're not asking people to buy in. We're asking people to do what they can, and what can we do to help you. That's one of the biggest things that we have changed here as far as what the purpose of our funding is. One of the other ways that we've really changed our funding philosophy has been that we wanted to broaden the basis of support here in Larimer County so that it's not just a Fort Collins centric party anymore, that we're trying to fund or we are funding Estes Park candidates, we're funding Loveland candidates, we're funding Wellington candidates. We're doing everything across the board in this county. And then on top of that, we're also expanding our outreach to groups that haven't necessarily been engaged in the past in this county, like people who speak Spanish, people at the college, people, working class people, that kind of thing. We're really expanding our outreach to those groups of people as well. And really, like, the future of this county and party is everybody's involved. Everybody's welcome to the table. We have a lot of, ideas here in the party, but what we really want is a more diverse group of ideas.
Yeah.
And to me, that happens when we are a broad outreach across the entire county.
It's music to my ears. Hearing you see that I've experienced it, right? So, but I love hearing it, and to know that it's intentional and not just because maybe because I knew some of the new people who were involved who were like, hey, yeah, we'd like to help because that is also great. Um, you're saying a lot of things that are very similar to what I do at work, right? And that
Mhm.
is that a lot of things in Larimer County, especially some of the things that involve more of the human side of things, right? We're very Fort Collins centric, and it just makes sense. Like very logically, I get it. It is so much easier to do some of these things in one town than it is to do it in this massive county that we have. I mean, I don't know, 1,000 square miles or something, right? And
Yeah,
so,
all public land, the wilderness, it's unbelievable, this county.
yeah, and we also have these really different cultures in our towns. It is absolutely amazing to me how things are changing. I love hearing that from people as they're sharing what their experiences are like in their place in where they're working and living. But um, there's also just like I think that that was also a barrier because we knew what to do in Fort Collins. We knew what to do with the county. Those two things are a lot. So, in all fairness, they're a lot. But you start to look at how different politics is in Loveland and Wellington and Windsor, and the fact that some of these towns are not in one county. Why, you know,
Yep.
all
Yeah.
of that. Our mountain towns are very
Hmm.
different. And also, I've talked to people in every one of those communities who have cared very deeply about the same things that the party cares about, didn't know how to get involved, maybe tried to get involved and there wasn't an opportunity. So I've been really excited about the fact that it is that welcome and outreach and open door because, it's us taking care of each other. Like that's a
Hmm.
big piece of this work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to anybody listening, if you want to come down to a county meeting or county party meeting, we will be extremely happy to see you, and we want to know what you think. We really, really do. You're not just going to be somebody sitting in a chair all quiet and nobody's going to talk to you. Every one of us is going to come over and try to talk to you and get you to tell us something. We want to know.
Yeah, I love
Everybody.
that. I actually talked to somebody who was a guest last week's meeting who said that. She didn't know you were going to say this, but that was her experience is that she was meeting most of the people in the room for the first time. And she was really excited about what she heard, but also just the fact that, she was welcomed and really a part of it. It was, I think, it's so nice, right? Who doesn't
It
love
is.
that? To come in and actually meet new people and not feel like you're not
Right.
sure what to do. So,
Right. I agree.
so you've brought
So,
up a couple of things I want to make sure we get in here out loud, which is how people can get involved, how they can do reoccurring donations, contributions, right? That's the right word.
yep.
Uh, and then also like where our meetings are. So those are some things if you pepper them in, that would be lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to be involved, I would say that the biggest thing is to come down to a meeting. We hold them virtually and in person once a month, and maybe even more than that going on here in the future. Coming up shortly are the caucuses as well. So if you want to be involved, a great way to be involved is to attend caucus and run for a precinct organizer position. That is what I did originally to get involved in this. They needed a precinct organizer. I raised my hand and said I would do it. And then once I had earned that label, I took that as the kind of motivation to, hey, I actually have to do something with that role. I can't just say I'm a precinct organizer. I have to go and do something.
Yeah.
But if we happen to be past caucuses and you hear this episode and you want to be involved, come down to a meeting. We hold them once a month. And like I said, if you come there, we want to know what you think. We want to see what your ideas are. And we are ready to fund ideas. That's the second part of this. If you are in a position that you want to help out and not necessarily, pounding pavement's not necessarily your thing, or you aren't able to get down to the meeting because you live up in Red Feather Lakes or something like that, a great way to be involved is to fund us. You could do that through the website. We have a club called the Dems Gems Club, which is the Democrats who give every month club. And in that, you will earn some special privileges and stuff like that, depending on what tier of donation that you're involved in. But you will also know that you are funding us on a recurring basis. And that recurring basis allows us to not worry about the funds or the fundraising as much and instead focus on electing Democrats, which is our point here.
Yeah. I also love it as every time I set up a recurring donation, like it's 2 minutes to set it up maybe. And then I don't have to think about it again unless something weird happens, like I change banks or change jobs, right? And that's when, then you go do all that updating. I love it because I really never have to think about it again. It's just flows and it works. So I'm a fan of that. I'm glad we're doing it.
And I will also say that if you're not comfortable with a recurring donation, you have the full option to donate once or donate however frequently you want on that website as well. But that is the best way to do it.
Awesome. The other thing is, of course, getting involved, right? So the idea is going to events, going to meetings, getting involved with caucus are all really good ways. There's also information on the website about the people who are running. So if you happen to live in one of these communities and you want to get involved at a more like down the street level, there are people running across the county for things. There's elections in April, in Estes and Wellington and Berthoud. I'm
That's right.
forgetting one. So there's lots of things happening all the time. So you can, pick things that work with your schedule, get involved, get engaged.
Well, and I just filled out my ballot first of 4 times I will be voting this year. I don't know if you've done the math on that yourself, but there's caucuses, there's presidential primary, there's party primary, and then there's the general election in November. And each of those 4 times, we really do need people to help us make sure that's all processed and people are turning in their ballots the way that they're supposed to be turning them in and everything like that. So there is constant need for volunteer basis work, phone calls, texts, walking around, talking to people, attending events, manning a table, whatever. I literally, if you have any skills, I bet you we can put you to proper work. Trust
I
us.
agreed. As someone who was so grateful for every volunteer that we had last fall,
Right.
I can echo that. So the other thing that I want to dive into, because you touched on it, and I think it's really important, is the values, right? The reason that we're doing this. Obviously, the candidates are a big piece of that because they're doing the work and aligning with the values. But I think there's some really good things that you guys have been talking about as well that it would be really great to share with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, well, Don, let me ask you. Are you originally from Larimer County, born and raised?
I'm one of the only ones. Yes, I'm a
Okay, I was
unicorn.
going to say, I am not. I chose to live here, and I can't believe this place. When we talk about like why we're doing this and the values that we're expressing, to me, and I can only speak for me, but the value that I'm expressing is my future hopes for this county. And in that future, like this county will not just be a place that, costs a significant amount of money to live in, where you have to do a certain job to be able to survive here, or you have to make a certain amount of money to survive here, or you have to know the right people to be able to survive here. I don't like living in a community like that. I like living in a community where everyone is welcome and everyone can be successful. And to me, we're just taking the first steps up a ladder or a staircase to make that happen here. And to me, the values, the way that we can the way that we express those values as a party is that we are reaching out to a broader base of the population of Larimer County and not just focusing on a specific geographic area. And then on top of that, we want to, I guess just broaden our outreach, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. That means so much, right? People love feeling invited and welcomed.
Mhm.
People are looking for ways to engage, and they don't always know how, even if they have interests. Sometimes it's just finding how to get involved. Um, I know that in the past, some of the things that you've touched on have made it hard for people to get involved. Even simple things that are like make sense, like having just a couple events can be a barrier. Um,
Mhm.
I love that we are getting more involved and we're seeing the fruits of that as well, right?
Yes.
So just this fall, I was keeping an eye on things a little bit more than normal. And, the significant change of having the Dems be engaged, right? To be like making phone calls immediately to say, how can we help? What's going on? What's what's this race look like? What do you know? Who do we need to talk to? How can we help? Was a big deal.
Yeah.
It's so overwhelming. And so to have even that little thing
Yeah.
means so much. And then the follow through was absolutely priceless and overwhelming to know that I had some place that I could go that people were just, I mean, I can't even tell you how much Mike did. There were other people who were just jumping in. We need something, and they were like, "Okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes." I'm like, "Wait, what?" It was amazing, and that took a lot of the stress, and just made it. It reminded me of why I was doing the work, right? That
Hmm.
it isn't about me as a person. It is
Yep.
about representing, and this was like a way to complete that loop. It was really, really nice. And so, for anybody who has been wondering about how they can get involved, that I think is important to know that we are really doing that day in and day out in a way that is very helpful. Yeah, I couldn't have done
The
it.
county Democratic Party absolutely represents a huge force of support for Democratic candidates in this county. If you want to be on the team of that group of support, that is the way to do it, is to be a Democrat and attend a meeting or just contact us in general. You can definitely are welcome on the team and we will definitely put you to work.
Yeah. So you bring up one thing that I want to make sure I connect as well, which is that overwhelmingly more people are registering to vote in Colorado, which is awesome, but the majority are registering as independents or unaffiliated.
Mhm.
And that has some things that then you can't participate in, like the
Okay.
caucus, right? And so it can be really helpful to know why why would you choose a party? And I'll tell you that for most of my life I was unaffiliated, not because I didn't agree with Dem principles. I think anybody who's talked to me for more than 2 minutes knows that that's, all the way through this. But I really did love the idea that I could show up and talk to people, all sorts of elected officials, and say, "Hey, you're working for my vote, right? I care about the issue, so I care about your answer. I'm not just here because I've got a title."
Mhm.
And actually, our Larimer County Dem chair is the reason that I changed that after a long, long time. The first time I ever registered as a Dem was because Tim said to me, "This is why. If you
Yeah.
want to do this thing," and it was actually be on a committee, "you have to be a Dem." And I went, "Great. I'm happy to be a Dem. I just didn't know that you needed me to be a Dem." And so I share that because all those years I thought I was being strategic and I thought I was being helpful. And I probably was in a different way. And I have found, though, that being part of the party has gotten me into more of the conversations that I wanted to be part of that I
Mhm.
didn't know were happening because I wasn't registered as a Dem. And so, there's my experience for anyone who might be feeling the same way.
I completely agree with that. The county elected officials that we have, from state senators and House representatives to all the way down to county commissioners and treasurers and clerks and whatever, are actually honestly really interested in what you have to say. That they're not operating on the basis of some sort of special interest. They are just regular people trying to do the task that they're elected to do. And it's actually really amazing to see them do that. There really are genuine people. When I was younger, I was unaffiliated for a long time too. And what got me on board was the caucus for Obama in 2008. And I said to myself that I wanted to really have an influence on who these candidates were going to be. To me, it seemed like Obama was going to be the candidate for president, but I knew that Obama was going to need support all the way down the ticket, all the way down to dog catcher, basically,
Yeah.
and that it wasn't going to do him any good to elect a progressive president with a bunch of conservative Democrats supporting him in the House and Senate. So to me, I think that showing up, being a person in the room with your candidates and your electeds really is very powerful. And that if you do that, and if you are personally currently frustrated with what you see as the Democratic Party, I'm telling you, come down, meet these people.
Right.
Your mind will be changed. I almost guarantee it.
Yeah.
I have had the most incredible personal interactions with politicians well before I had any sort of role in the party or anything like that. These people are really good and they're really genuine and they're really transparent and want to know what you think about everything. They
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. I love hearing that. I have experienced that same thing. And I do, you remind us of that other piece, which is that so often we get really focused on just one thing, usually the president, right? That's what brings
Right.
out the most voters. Um, it's in our face, like whether you're trying to pay attention or not, you're hearing information about it. And and that is big. But
Mhm.
all the way through, how supported everyone is about building that foundation, right? The fact that
Absolutely.
our neighbors who are making these decisions locally is a big deal, right? Like so many of our local decisions are the ones that impact us the most. Our federal dollars are a tiny part of that big tax bill that everybody's so excited about right now. I haven't
Yeah.
opened mine yet. Um, that's why I'm still like making this face and not crying. But, at the same time, we have a say in that stuff that impacts us day in and day out, right?
Yeah.
And if we don't know that, because these are strangers whose name we see on signs every couple years, that can feel overwhelming. And
It's very true. If you're frustrated with the candidates or the people who are nominated as candidate as a Democrat or Republican, I'm telling you, show up and tell them that you're frustrated with them and that they don't align with you. Or stage a campaign against them. Like, there's only a few hundred people that regularly come to a caucus. It's not very hard to show up and change the entire mix up of how this all is going on. Like, I know it seems kind of impenetrable or difficult to break into, but once you are actually involved in it, you will see that you have as much influence as you choose to have in these situations. The governor, like you could be as powerful as the governor if you just put the work in.
yeah,
That's all it
on,
takes.
honestly, um, I had a very interesting week where I had several conversations that are that, right. Like just
Hmm?
I didn't know that on Thursday that I was going to be able to do things that I'm going to be able to look back on and go, wow, that was a big conversation. I didn't plan it. That was not a time when I went out on purpose. I just happened to be talking to people who have the ability to do something, which is really nice. I will say that's the other thing that
Yep.
I think helped my mental health 1,000,000%. There's other things I do, but that's a big one, is like
Yeah.
actually knowing that what's in my control and what's not. And then what's in my control is actually speaking up, right? There are
It really
people
is.
who care. There are, even if like somebody doesn't do everything I want, which, they don't, um, there's still value in the fact that we are hearing different voices. And just this week, there was a bill that we were talking about, and it needs to be better. That's it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to go
Right.
through fine. That's fine, but it's got to be better. And
Hmm.
there were people who were able to help the right people understand what it is that needs to be tweaked. And then those conversations, everybody was like, "Oh, I didn't think of that. That's great." And oops, and ta-da! Now we have
Absolutely.
something that's more workable for more people.
Yep.
That's the whole point, and pretty cool. So, um, I know that there are several other things that we want to talk about, but I imagine that there are people right now who are almost done making dinner or whatever else they're doing as they're listening in. So we get the benefit of having more conversations to talk about some of the things that we just started today, right? More of what we're doing locally, more things that are really important when it comes to what we're doing locally. One of my favorites is one of your favorites, which is public education. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
and also, I do want to,
Foundation of all of this.
yeah, I also really want to hear your story about how you got involved, what's really important to you. We talked more about your role, which is also important, but I want to get a chance to hear more of your stories. So hopefully we can talk soon about those
Mhm.
things at another session. with that being said, is there anything else that you want people to know right now that we want to make sure we have a chance to share?
I will just say, if you hear this before caucus on March 9th, please attend caucus. Your voice will be very valued and very important to us. Please come to caucus. And if you happen to hear this outside of the caucus window, please vote on every opportunity that you have here in 2024 and consider going to larimerdems.org and making a donation. We would really appreciate it.
Awesome. One more thing I want to say is a little plug about how much we saved because we did virtual caucuses. I would love to share that with people who are like, hey, money, ew. Let's talk about some of the smart ways that we're using money.
We spend about $50 a month on our Zoom subscription. And in order to have the capacity to run a virtual caucus, we had to spend an extra $200, and that's it. Whereas before, we would spend probably $8,000 to $20,000 on renting school buildings to have a few hundred people show up and do caucus. Instead, you don't have to get in your car. You don't have to put carbon in the air. You don't have to find a sitter. You don't have to rearrange a meal. On Saturday, March 9th, 10 a.m., all you have to do is log into Zoom, not spend any money. Party's not going to spend any money. And instead, we could roll all that funding into candidates and getting them elected.
I love it. And it's open to everyone. So whether you want to just learn more and watch, or whether you get inspired to jump in and something sparks your interest, or you're already chomping to get involved, that is a great place to start. And then after that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, even if you're not a Democrat, please come on and check us out. You're welcome too.
Yeah. And what I was going to say is that if this airs after caucus, which it might, there's still all that work that's happening. And so you can still get involved with the next thing. There's still going to be people locally, in our little districts, right, that are not very many people who need to continue to hear from us.
There's a precinct organizer in every district, and they are ready to put you to work. So if you want to get to know your neighbors, you want to knock on doors, there's a precinct organizer in your neighborhood. I guarantee it.
Wonderful. Well, it was such a pleasure to get to connect with you today, Andy. I'm inspired, which is really fun. Thank you for everything. Just a reminder to everyone, now is a great time to become a Dem Gem on the Larimer County Dems website. Any reoccurring donation is really helpful to make sure that we can continue to do all these things. We just heard about how responsible we are with the money and what we're doing with it, so you know where it goes, which is nice. It's not just some weird thing, it's real. So thank you for helping us hear that, get involved. We'd love to get to meet everyone, and you get to meet Andy, which is one of the perks of getting involved, I think. Truly, you care about some of this stuff, and it's fun to get to hear more.
Well, and if you're hearing this, I want to get to know you too and hear what you have to think too. I really do.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you so much, Andy. We will be talking soon. For everyone else, have a wonderful day. I hope it is good, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks again, Don. Bye.
Paid for by the Larimer County Democratic Party, 604 South Mason Street, Fort Collins, Colorado, 80524, 970-689-6391. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.